So, what made you start Alive and Free?
You're so cute. I love you.
Love you. Start.
So, a few years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, I was doing ministry school up in Northern California, and I was a caregiver for one girl who was a quadriplegic, and for another girl who had Rett syndrome and metal rods in her spine. And I just had a freak thing happen where first my back blew out, and so I couldn't take care of one of my clients because I was picking up dead weight. And then the other one was perfect. She was really light, she was really tiny, so I could keep my second job. And they asked me to sign a year-long contract with them, and then I went on a trip for a week that they knew about, and I came home, showed up for work, and they pretty much said, "What are you doing here? You don't work for us anymore. You never signed a contract." And so I lost both of my jobs in 1 week, and I was just blown away. I was like, what the, how did I get fired when I never actually got fired, when I just signed a contract because he loved me so much? And I remember just knowing that God was up to something. There was like the mild moment of panic, but then I was really hopeful because I just trust that if I have freak things that are happening like that, that God has something better for me. And so I think it was maybe a month or two that had gone by, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I had finished ministry school, and I knew that I loved holistic health, spirit, soul, and body, but I didn't know how to go after that. But what I was really good at was personal training. I was great at working out. So I just thought, I'm going to start personal training, and we'll see if I can get some clients, and we'll see how it goes. And I did that, and all of my clients that I'd be training would end up in tears in the gym because self-hatred would come out in a moment, or their body shame would come out in a moment, or whatever it was. And so while I'm training my clients in the gym, they would be in tears, and I would start walking them through inner healing, which was the thing that I loved the most. But I didn't have any, I couldn't comprehend a way to do that as a job. It wasn't even an option. It was literally not an option. I remember years ago praying, God, if I could just get paid to walk people through inner healing, and that was all that I did, that'd be incredible. And it felt like such a goofy prayer to pray. And I'm walking all of my training clients through inner healing, and it turns into what one of my clients called couch sessions. He's like, could you just come to my house because I know I need inner healing. I want to work through this stuff, and I don't feel comfortable doing it at the gym. And so that's what I started doing. Then I end up getting married, and I move, and I thought, well, I guess I could just get new clients all over again. I did it before, I could do it again. And I was just kind of debating, is that what I want to do? Should I do it like one client a day? What should I do? And I'm sitting with a friend at coffee, and out of nowhere, she's like, I think I need you for something. I was like, okay, what do you need? I'm not really sure, I just feel like I need something from you. And she had no idea what it was. So I was like, okay, close your eyes. And then I asked her, Heart, what do you feel like you're needing from me? And she starts bawling her eyes out. She says, I think I need you to walk me through my self-judgment. And so I walk her through this moment where we take her back to when she was 5 years old, where she remembers judging herself for the first time. And she did it to protect herself in a moment when she felt rejected. And she's bawling her eyes out because she's realizing, man, I have 20 plus years of self-judgment, and I never knew where it came from, and I never knew why I struggled with it so bad. And most of the time I didn't even know what it was. I just thought this was normal. And I remember coming home feeling so full and so alive. And I came home to Spencer, and what did you say to me? You're like, I want to see you like this all the time. You are so alive right now. Like, I want to see you lit up like this. And I was just like, okay, maybe this is what I can do. And so I posted on my Instagram that day, and I said, I'm taking clients for inner healing. If you want to get self-aware, if you want to walk through emotional healing, if you want to encounter God, reach out to me. And I think it was within like a week, I had like 7 clients. And the next week, more clients. The next week, more clients. And I did that for, I think, 8 months, something like that, where take them into where that trauma first started. We'd access that pain point. And a lot of times when you have a trauma, you create belief systems, you start believing lies in that moment, and you build up all of these different things to protect yourself from pain. You use it as a defense mechanism. And so that's what I was doing. I'd bring people into these moments and they would encounter God and they would start seeing their cycles in their life break because they were getting healing and not reacting to their pain and their trauma all of the time. So girls over the course of 6 to 8 months would be feeling full and alive and free. Hashtag alive and free. It's literally why we named it Alive and Free, because those are the descriptive words for what we do. But they'd overcome eating disorders and self-hatred. They'd step into healthy relationships and learn how to navigate through things. And the goal wasn't to get people pain-free, right? Or say you're never going to have pain again or you're never going to have problems again. I think that that's BS. The goal was to get people feeling powerful when pain hits, in the midst of situations, in the midst of relationships. Because trust me, if you're going to get into a relationship, all of your ish is going to hit the fan. And every time you get triggered, all of your stuff comes up again. So the goal isn't to just overcome it so it never happens. It's doing it powerfully, learning how to navigate through it powerfully, where you have the right tools and you feel confident, you know how to connect to God, you know how to give yourself love and compassion. And so that's what Alive and Free was birthed from. And I ended up doing sessions with so many women and started feeling so tired because all day, every single day, it was one session after the other after the other. I started noticing themes with all of the women. And there'd be some women for 3 hours in a row, every single hour, I'm talking to a different woman with the same problem. And I'd just be like, man, I wish that she was in the session with her, because then they could connect over it. Then they'd have community and friendship and they wouldn't feel alone, which breaks shame. And then I could save my time and my energy and not have to re-explain the same things over and over again. And so Spencer at one point in time challenged me so hard. I didn't want to, and I was not ready to, and I didn't believe in it, but he said, we need to scale. It'll be more effective for the women and it'll give you more energy in the long run. And I remember just being like, I don't want to do it. And I was so resistant for quite a while, but I knew that I felt really comfortable in what I was doing. And for me, I don't want to just help other people grow. I want to constantly be growing. I want to constantly be challenging my own belief systems. And so it took me a little bit, and we decided to start investing in a business coach. And the whole thing is teaching you how to scale your business so it's more effective, so you can influence more people and make more of an impact. And we did it. It took a couple months, and I had to learn how to unpack everything that was in my head and everything that was in my heart. Because it was easy to do if I'm in a one-on-one, because I could just go back and forth and I can see and use my discernment and I can feel things out and I can listen to what God's saying over you and walk you through things, all based on my senses, because I'm good at that. But what I wasn't good at is learning how to teach and actually walk you through a process. And so through the course of unpacking all of that, I learned, man, there's actually a step-by-step process that if I unpack my own life journey and what God walked me through, and if I look at the trend that happened with all of these different clients I had, the processes aren't that different. Now, everyone is different. Everyone has unique problems and belief systems and traumas, but we all need the same types of things. We need support, we need leadership, we need to invest in ourselves, and we need the right tools. We need to learn how to connect with Jesus, and ultimately, when you have all of those things in place, it just is a launching pad for you to grow and for you to step into thriving and being the fullness of who God's called you to be.
And what's safer about people bringing their problems to Alive and Free than other Christian organizations?
So for us, I know that there are people doing things kind of similarly as we are. Is that how you say similarly? We know a handful of people that function the way that we do. But we function very differently than most Christians. We love Jesus. We believe in the Trinity. We love the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit and the power of Jesus. But a lot of what I was exposed to my whole life was God in a box. He wasn't more powerful than your pain. And we love God and He's our Savior, but we're all stuck in our brokenness and there's no way out of it. So we're just going to let Him love us in our mess, which half of the message is gold and the other half is trash because you have to stay stuck in your brokenness. And then when I ventured out and tried to get help and tried to find leadership, I was met with, well, just stop believing lies. Just band-aid the truth. You just don't know the truth yet. And so I'm like trying to read my Bible, trying to understand what it's saying, trying to find spiritual mothers and fathers because that's what the church was telling me to do, trying to find a leader to submit to because that's another thing that I learned to do. And it felt like none of it worked. It felt like none of it actually helped my life. None of it edified me. But what was the game changer for me was actually when I met my husband. And whenever I'd hit these cycles of self-hatred that would pop up again, or shame again, or self-judgment again, he actually introduced me to unconditionally loving myself in the midst of my mess. Now, he had worked with a life consultant for years who had walked him through the same process, and he was really embracing that for himself. And I saw the freedom that he carried. And he was messy and did things different and was not your cookie cutter Christian. He actually kind of offended me because I was a little bit super spiritual. And yet he carried so much authenticity and there was power in his life. There was transformation that was happening in his life. He had known God, seen crazy miracles, signs, and wonders, and all the things like I had, but then he got burned out. And he got to walk through his process of loving himself for the first time ever and breaking up with his best friends, which was shame and self-hatred and self-judgment. And so he introduced me to this. And the reason why it changed my life so much because I got to receive God's love in the middle of my mess and learn how to give myself love and compassion in the middle of my mess, when before all I would do is try to fix myself out of it and modify my behavior until I was out of it, and read my Bible enough and fast enough and pray enough and worship enough until I was out of the mess. And what's been the craziest, most transformative thing for me is actually encountering love and compassion in the middle of my pain and mess. And it launched me in so many areas of my life. And I watched it happen over and over and over again with all the women that I worked with. And so we function a little bit differently because we love Jesus, but Jesus broke my boxes a long time ago, and every time I try to put myself in a box, He broke it. And so we function really outside of the box, and we're messy, and we like it that way because for us, that's where love actually exists. Not when the conditions are perfect, but when no matter what condition we're in, we still get to be loved and chosen by God and choose ourselves as well.
And so can you quickly paint a picture for me how different your life was growing up and how painful that was,
God, yeah.
and how it's different now? And what qualifies you to do what you're doing?
Man, I was just sitting at coffee with a girlfriend telling her a little bit about my family. And my family watches my YouTube videos, so sorry for my honesty. Sorry, not sorry. Trauma was the first thing I remember. Like laying in my parents' doorway, I was literally 2 years old, and hearing them screaming and envisioning, beating being happening. Wow. I remember envisioning my dad beating my mom. Now, I don't think he ever did that. My dad's not the villain, but both of my parents are really, really messy, to be honest. They both brought their fair share of pain. But my first experience of life that I remember was pain and disconnection. And I actually suppressed all of my childhood memories besides that one up until I was about 18 years old when I started my healing process. I didn't remember anything. And God started reminding me of all of these things that I had suppressed. And it was just chaos and trauma and disconnection and being tossed back and forth between parents. And I remember my mom got pregnant by another man whenever I was 5 years old. And She told me that she was going to give the baby up for adoption. And subconsciously, I didn't know it at the time, but subconsciously, when we gave my sister up for adoption, I was sitting in my living room and we handed the baby over to this other family. I started believing if they'd give her up, they'd give me up too. And though I was never abandoned, I had all of these abandonment issues that all linked up to that one moment whenever I just started believing, oh, I could be abandoned too. And my mom was really nurturing and super attentive towards me my entire childhood. And so I think that gave me a huge sense of security. And my dad was just in pain my whole life. My dad's been in pain my entire life. So he was always kind of running away and disconnected and numbing himself. And his energy was on the church because he was a pastor. And I think that he probably found a lot of his significance and his identity in leading the church. And so, you know, in the midst of being tossed from my mom to my dad and my mom to my dad, I always got favored by my mom and then felt ignored by my dad. And so when I was with my mom, my sisters would all reject me because they noticed that I was favored by her. And so I just had this deep-rooted rejection, just believing that they don't want me, that I don't matter. It doesn't matter how much I give, how hard I try, how servant-hearted I am, how beautiful I am, how good I perform. I did all of the things, and I never got acceptance. And so I just remember there being constant war inside of me and inside of my family. You know, and I had sisters running away from home and going out and doing drugs and sleeping around and getting pregnant, and one that ended up bipolar and schizophrenic and just crazy chaos. And coming out of that kind of pain and trauma, I didn't even know that I could live free, to be honest. I didn't know what health was. I didn't have hope for a good life. There was something inside of me where I knew that God was good and that God had nothing to do with what was happening in my circumstances. And I thought that that was a huge gift to me, that I didn't project all of that onto God. But I didn't think that I would have a good life. It wasn't even an option because I'd never seen what that looked like. And so now, being where I'm at today, I was telling my friend at coffee this morning, I cannot believe that I am who I am. I cannot believe that God is so good that He would bring me out of that kind of hell and chaos and bring me into so much redemption. Like, I'm thriving in so many areas of my life. Now, I still have pain. I have past pain that I still have to process through. It comes up layer by layer. But my circumstances are incredible. I have such a healthy marriage. I would navigate through confrontation when before I would just run. I could not picture a marriage being with a guy that I didn't hate and want to get away from. I couldn't even fathom that. I was so afraid of choosing into a marriage and constantly wanting to get away from the man that I chose. And I don't feel like that at all, unless I'm like really, really triggered. But I don't feel like that at all. I feel so at peace and I feel so connected to God, and I feel pretty detached from where I came from, to be honest, and it feels healthy for me. Not in a way where I've numbed it or suppressed it, but in the way where I've processed through a lot of it, and I've grieved what I didn't get, and I'm still grieving what I didn't get in my childhood. But I feel like I've got to see God's hand in my life like crazy because of all the pain that I came from. And so I'm really, really thankful for that. And in that, the last thing I'll say is it just gives me so much hope for healing and redemption in everybody that I come into contact with. Because there's no one that's too far gone, that has too much pain, that came from too much brokenness, that God can't heal. And it's not this abstract thing like we're waiting on this foreign God to come and swoop us up and heal us and it's done. I think it's a continual choosing in. It's a continual like rendering our hearts to God, but also having leadership. If I did not have leadership, if I did not invest in myself, if I did not pay for getting tons of life consulting and business coaching and all the things that I did, I would not be who I am today in the marriage that I'm in today. I wouldn't have the life that I have today. And so with the combination of those different things, I personally believe that there's hope for every single person. And my life is just a glimpse of that. You know, it just gives me hope to hold on to, that if I could do it, that you could too. It's so hot over here.
It's really hot.
For me, God is such a faithful and loving Father. He is so consistent. He's always with us. He's so present. I personally feel like God is waiting for me to connect with Him all day, every day. I'll get still and quiet within myself, and not in an attitudey or impatient way, but I feel like He's like, I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting all day. In a way where He's like, I'm expectantly waiting to love you. I'm expectant to just connect with you, because I know that when I connect with you, that you'll get so full and you'll feel so one with me and you'll be in such alignment with me, and that's where you thrive. And so for me, I mean, even whenever I was smoking weed and fooling around and drinking too much, I was so messy. And I remember coming home from high school parties just trashed. And I'd have so much anxiety, and I'd feel so disconnected from God and from myself. I didn't even know what connection with myself looked like. And I remember I'd get in bed and close my eyes, and I would just try to picture myself being with God. I remember for years I'd picture myself sitting on a swing and watching God just push me on this swing. And there was something that was really soothing about that to me, but what would happen as He would be swinging me is all of a sudden I'd feel physically my whole body get the chills and get tingly and then go numb. And what I was seeing happen in my mind's eye was Him wrapping His arms around me and just squeezing me and holding me so tight on His chest. And I remember laying on my back. Now, I'm like a side or a stomach sleeper, like spread out or like spooning a pillow. But I'd lay flat on my back with my arms by my side. And I remember feeling like I was in a cocoon. And my whole body would go numb. And I remember feeling like, oh no, oh God, what's happening? I feel out of control. And then this peace would come over me. And I felt like, oh, I'm with Him. That's why this feels different. It's because I'm with Him. And there's peace here. And there's love here. And even whenever I was such a mess and disconnected and running away from God and sinning, actively sinning, God was so present with me, just waiting to love me. So for me, I look at how present He was through all these seasons of my life, and I know that He's not waiting to shame me or judge me or come to, give me correction or throw down a strong hand or whatever it is. I know that He's waiting to just hug me. I know that if I make a mess, that it's consequence enough in itself, that He doesn't have to come and, be harsh or cruel to me or be a condemning God for me to learn from my mistakes. I truly believe that God doesn't have to punish us for our sins, because the effects of our sins, the consequences of our sins, are painful enough. God is so faithful. Like we learn from our mistakes so well that all He has to do is be there to kiss our knee that we bumped and give us a hug and say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And for me, that's my experience of God. And for me, anytime I have things that aren't true that I'm projecting onto God that make me want to disconnect from Him, anytime I'm hiding from Him or want to pull away or I don't want to connect with Him at all, that's an indicator for me that I'm projecting something onto God. It's not Him, it's me. And so for me, I invite Him into those moments and I ask Him to clean up whatever it is that I'm putting onto Him. I ask Him, where did it come from? Where did I feel like I needed to hide from you? Where do I feel like I wanted to disconnect from you, and why? And I let Him lead me in those moments so that I want connection again. And to me, He's just that faithful that He's happy to lead us in those moments, because what He wants more than anything else in the world is connection with us. And I personally believe that that's why He made humanity in the first place, is because He wanted to share Himself with us. He wanted to have experiences with us. He wanted to have communion with us. He wanted relationship more than anything else. So I was walking one of our clients through just some of her pain that was coming up. And she said, I've just felt so angry at God for so many years. And, you're teaching me how to connect with him. And I don't want to connect with him because I feel so mad at him. And I was like, okay, tell me about it. And she's like, well, why did he let this happen to me? And like, this man raped me. Why did he let that happen? Where was he? Where was my dad? Why did anyone fight for me? And she's just spewing her anger, which I think is really, really healthy. And I'm just getting her to keep sharing. Just let it out, let it rip. And then I have her close her eyes and I tell her, I want you to picture Jesus. Just picture him in front of you because he wants to talk to you right now. And she sees him. And I tell her, I want you to tell him how you feel towards him. So she starts crying and she's angry and she's saying, where were you? Where were you? I feel so angry at you. And she in this moment when she's crying, she interrupts herself and she's telling me about how when she was a little girl, she had a vision of Jesus on the cross. And then all of a sudden he turned really mean and angry and he looked like a demon. And he said, I don't love you and I don't want you and I'm not pleased with you in this vision. And she got super frightened because I think she was raised Catholic, so Jesus was normal for her. And she gets super frightened and then she's starting to think, God doesn't love me. God was telling me in this vision that he doesn't love me, that I'm bad, that he doesn't want me. And she's carried that for all of these years. And so she shares that with me and I have her ask Jesus, was that you? Is that true? Do you love me? Do you want me? And so she asks him and then she starts crying, like bawling her eyes out after she just spewed all of her anger out onto God. Accusation, where were you? You left me, you were never with me. More accusation, you don't want me. You told me that you don't like me. You told me that you weren't pleased with me. And all he says is, I've always loved you. I've always wanted you. That vision that you had wasn't me. I was actually with you the entire time and I was crying as those things were happening to you. I never wanted any of those things to happen. That was never my intention for you. And she is crying because she's learning after 20 plus years of harboring this anger and pain and these lies. She's just believing lies for so many years. She's finally getting to release those what people like to do in a lot of advice giving settings and counseling settings is, say she shared her experience and what she believed about God. What most people do, for me, I know the truth is that God was always there and always with her. So people will be like, that's not true. He loved you the entire time and he was fighting for you all along. And that to a degree is powerful, just hearing truth. But when you get to experience truth, when it's an experiential knowing with God, right? When you hear him say it to you from his mouth to your ears himself, then it's so easy for your heart to release those lies because your heart had a new experience. So we create belief systems from experiences. So those belief systems get to be deconstructed when we're in new experiences. And so why I love encounters and why I believe in encounters is because in a moment we get to encounter God in an experiential way that helps us relearn his nature. It actually lets us release those lies that we were believing and we have a new experience to hold on to. So though we believe in the truth and reading the Bible and declarations, we think those are all really powerful. We actually believe that people need to encounter the truth for themselves. I love that verse. Babe, what's the verse? Know the truth and the truth will set you free. Do you know what verse
John
that is?
8:32.
John 8:32 says, know the truth and the truth will set you free. Well, a lot of the church says, so read the word every single day. Make sure you're renewing your mind with the word of God. But the word know is actually an experience. It's like in the Old Testament when it says, and God created Adam and Eve and then they knew each other. That means that they had sex. They intimately knew each other for the first time. So it was an experience. They didn't talk to each other about who they were. They had sex. It was an experiential, intimate moment. I believe that in that verse, know the truth and the truth will set you free. It's that same kind of an experience. It's an intimate knowing in your spirit. And so I don't think that we can intellectually just know the truth, right? Because that turns to logic. And though there's a little bit of weight in that, to me, that doesn't set me free. It never set me free. No matter how many Bible verses I read, it never set me free. But in a moment when God spoke the truth to me and I experienced his nature, I knew the truth because I experienced it for myself. I had conviction because of that experience, and it brought freedom into my heart. And so to us, we love to know the truth, and the truth sets you free. We love to encounter God because what we've experienced is that encountering him is what actually brings you freedom and brings you healing from your past pain and from your past trauma. So that's what we do in our business. Is we go over the truth and we do the different things and teach the different tools, but it mostly comes down to encountering and experiencing God for yourself. So my advice for anyone who is hearing this stuff and you want it and you want to grow and you know you need healing and you know you want more connection with God, you know you want to feel connected to yourself and step into healthy relationships, get help. Stop trying to do it on your own. I did that for so long. I was so independent and I was so self-sufficient. And I believed that I needed to figure things out on my own because that's the only thing that felt safe to me. And it wasn't until my husband called me out. We were dating at the time, and he called me out and he said, it's a big red flag for me that you don't have leadership in your life. I need to know and trust that whenever things are coming up, you're seeking leadership. You're getting truth from someone who's been there and done that before you, who can lead you and accelerate your process. I don't feel safe knowing that you're the biggest person in your life. And when he said that, I felt so called out. And it was hard because I wanted leadership and I just never found it. And I also had tons of wounds around leadership and tons of wounds around mothers and fathers, even if they weren't my own, even if it was a spiritual mother and father. But it wasn't until I decided, okay, well, I'm going to take it into my own hands and I'm just going to pay for leadership. I'm going to get counseling or life consulting, but I'm going to choose someone who I want to be like. So for me, that's what I looked for. I didn't want someone that just had a degree that, claimed to help me. I wanted to be able to see someone's life, see their marriage, see the way that they did life and their relationship with God, and then follow them, because we become like who we surround ourselves with, right? You look at the 4 closest people in your life, you're probably something like them because of the time that you've spent with them. So for me, if I'm going to invest into leadership, I want to know that I'm going to, how do I say this right? If I'm following leadership, that means I'm going to go where they're going. If I don't know where they're going because they're not vulnerably sharing their life, then I'm not going to be led by them because I don't know where the hell they're leading me to. So for me, I'm going to look at the fruit of their life, and if I like it and it brings me freedom and I feel excited and it gives me hope for marriage and hope for, thriving or family or business or whatever it is, that's how I know that that's the kind of leadership I want to invest into. So what I'm not saying is that you need to follow us or that you need to invest into our program. But what I am saying is find someone, find something, a person who's ahead of you, a person who's walking in freedom, a person who's radically connected to God, a person that you want to be like, and get help from them. It does not make your experience less valuable because you have to pay for it. I actually believed that for a long time. Well, if I have to pay for it, I don't actually want it. And it's such BS. It is such BS because a person that you have to pay for has devoted their entire life to just helping and leading people. So it probably means that they're really good at what they're doing because they use that to sustain themselves, right? That's what they're doing all day, every day. And so it is so powerful to just invest. If you have a few bad experiences of investing in yourself, don't stop. Keep trying. The odds are if you keep trying, you'll find someone who gets it, someone who can love you, someone who can see into you, someone that can give you good leadership in your life. So just keep going and find someone with the tools and the freedom most people spend the first half of their lives sacrificing their health to acquire wealth. And then they spend the last half of their lives sacrificing their wealth to get back their health. And so for me, my perspective of this is you can either invest now and then you can reap the reward of that later, or you can not invest now and it'll end up costing you later. You can decide. For me, I love being proactive. I want to do everything that I possibly can do to set me up to thrive now instead of having to pay the price for it later. So my encouragement to you is no matter where you're at in life, no matter where you're at in the process, how much growth you've done, how powerful you are, you're never going to be done. I actually believe that when we stop growing, we start dying inside. When we think that we've arrived, we actually lose vision for our lives. I think we are actually more connected to pride and our own self-sufficiency than we are with actually being who God's called us to be. And so my encouragement to you is for you to get really present with who you want to be. And if you feel like you're already that, then dream bigger. I've hit that point so many times where I'm like, I think I am who I really want to be. I feel like I love myself. I love where I'm at in life. And I get reminded every single time, oh, actually, I'm just not dreaming big enough. Actually, I don't have enough vision for my life, or maybe I'm not believing God for enough. So I get present with the next bigger thing and the woman that I really desire to be, and then I do whatever it takes to become her. I'm not hard on myself. I don't feel like I have to, beat it into my head, but I find someone who's ahead of me and then I follow their leadership and I invest in more help so that I can thrive and be all that God's called me to be. And I want that for you. The really fun thing about my life and where I'm at today is that I had no intention of being here at all. I didn't want to push my growth in a lot of different seasons. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to do the hard work. The way that I function now is so drastically different than how I functioned a year ago. And I had to confront a lot of different things for the last year in order to be where I'm at today. And I am literally living my dreams. I cannot even fathom it, but I feel like I am standing in every single promise that God has ever given me. He's already fulfilled it. But I had to confront a lot of stuff along the way to get to where I'm at today. And I never could have envisioned this for myself. So much of it came from my husband cheering me on and rooting me on and believing in me. And there were a lot of times that I wanted to give up. Every time I had anxiety, every time I had a meltdown, every time I felt exhausted, I just wanted to stop. And every single time I was like, well, I'm allowed to stop if I want to, or I can just learn how to take care of myself better, or I can learn how to get more connected to God. Or I can just choose truth today and I can rest today. I guess that all I really want to share in this is that I want you to keep going. I want you to hear my story. Like now we have 6 employees and 5 of them were our clients first and asked to work for us because they were so impacted and stepped into so much freedom and stepped into healthy relationships, and they wanted to be a part of what we were doing. And we have over 360 clients now around all across the United States and Canada, and we haven't even done marketing in any other country yet. Like, we're pushing growth in so many different spheres of Alive and Free, and I get to work from home, and I live in Hawaii, like across the street from the beach, and I have this little dream home that I never even thought that I would have. And I'm getting to live out all of the things that my heart really, really desired. It wasn't about the status, it wasn't about the material things, but there was a way that I wanted to live life, mostly down to my purpose and how fulfilled I was and connected to God, connected to myself, and connected to my husband. And I'm getting to live all of those different things because I just didn't stop. If I ever, didn't like where we were heading, I would be really, really happy to stop. But the only times I've wanted to stop is when I'm having to break my own box again and confront different things within myself. And I'm just really, really thankful that I did that. And I know that if I can, that you can too. And so I hope that you enjoy some of the process of Alive and Free, and click around, find videos, watch our workshops. If you love this and this was impactful for you and you're wanting help and healing, look up some of our stuff, get submerged, see if it's a good fit for you. And if you're just following us along for the ride, then thank you. Thanks for watching and for taking time out of your day. And I don't know you, but I love you.